How do you fly an airliner when your speed disappears? On June 1st, 2009, Air France Flight 447 vanished over the Atlantic. An Airbus A330 cruising at 35,000 feet between Rio de Janeiro and Paris, carrying 228 people. No distress call, no mayday, just silence. At first, the jet is still flyable, the engines are running, the controls are responding, but something is wrong. Within minutes, the aircraft will enter a deep stall, one the crew never recognize. There is no explosion, no mid-air breakup, only a brief loss of reliable airspeed, followed by confusion and nose-up inputs that slowly drive the aircraft beyond the edge of its envelope. It will take almost 2 years to find the wreckage on the ocean floor and understand how this could happen. This is the story of Air France Flight 447. May 31st, 2009. Late evening in Rio de Janeiro. Air France Flight 447 departs Galeão Airport at 22:29, bound for Paris. An overnight crossing of the Atlantic. It is a routine long-haul flight. The aircraft is an Airbus A330, fly-by-wire, highly automated, built to cross oceans with minimal pilot input. On board are 216 passengers and 12 crew. Families, tourists, business travelers, nothing unusual. The planned route leads northeast across the equatorial Atlantic through the intertropical convergence zone, a region where towering storm clouds can rise higher than cruising aircraft. That night, weather radar shows clusters of thunderstorms ahead. Other aircraft on similar routes request small deviations, weaving carefully around the brightest echoes. At cruise altitude, the captain leaves the cockpit for scheduled rest. Two co-pilots remain at the controls as the A330 levels at flight level 350, near the upper edge of its performance envelope, heading toward the high cloud. Far below, there is only the ocean. Ahead, the first distant flashes of lightning begin to illuminate the sky. At 2:10:05 UTC, over the equatorial Atlantic, the autopilot disconnects. A warning chime sounds. The flight directors vanish from the screens. The Airbus A330 drops from normal law into alternate law. There is no single message explaining why. The aircraft is at flight level 350, inside cloud, at night, crossing the intertropical convergence zone. Outside, the turbulence is light. Inside the cockpit, the crew is suddenly hand-flying a wide-body jet near the limits of its performance. Ice crystals have begun to obstruct the pitot probes. The three airspeed values no longer agree. The computers stop trusting them. Within seconds, the autothrust disconnects. Thrust remains at climb power. The pilot flying reacts by pulling back on the side stick. The nose rises. The aircraft begins to climb. At 2:10:51, a synthetic voice sounds in the cockpit for the first time. Stall! Stall! The wings are now approaching their critical angle of attack. A faint shudder runs through the structure. Not turbulence, but buffet. Then, the stall warning stops. Not because the aircraft has recovered, but because, with corrupted airspeed data, the warning logic no longer sees a valid angle of attack. The nose keeps rising. The speed keeps bleeding away. The horizontal stabilizer trims steadily further nose up, following the sustained command from the side stick. The aircraft stops climbing. It begins to sink. The vertical speed grows, thousands of feet per minute downward, while the pitch attitude remains high. The engines continue to produce thrust. The control surfaces still move when commanded. Nothing has broken. But the aircraft is now in a fully developed aerodynamic stall. From 2:11 onward, Air France 447 is falling, not diving, stalling. The nose stays pitched up around 15 degrees. The wings no longer produce enough lift. The descent rate climbs beyond 10,000 feet per minute. Inside the cockpit, the picture is fragmented. Airspeed values appear, disappear, then return. Speed trends show brief acceleration, then sudden loss. At times, the flight director bars reappear and seem to call for a climb. The stall warning sounds intermittently, only when at least one angle of attack value becomes valid again. Each time it does, the pilots pull back once more. At no point do they name what is happening as a stall. At 2:11:40, the captain returns to the cockpit. He finds an aircraft sinking through cloud with unreliable speeds and conflicting cues. The pitch trim remains close to full nose up. The descent continues. 20,000 feet passes, then 10,000. Outside, there is only darkness and cloud. No horizon, no sea. At 2:14:28 UTC, after 3 minutes and 30 seconds of stalled descent, Air France Flight 447 strikes the Atlantic Ocean. The aircraft is still largely intact. The nose is high. The vertical speed is extreme. There is no breakup in the air, no explosion. The wreckage vanishes beneath the surface almost at once. For the outside world, the flight simply disappears. In the early hours of June 1, 2009, Air France Flight 447 does not arrive in Paris. Controllers lose contact shortly after the last automated maintenance messages are received. There is no mayday, no emergency call, no radar return to follow. At first, the aircraft is simply missing. Search operations begin later that morning over a vast stretch of the equatorial Atlantic. French and Brazilian aircraft and ships, joined by others, sweep thousands of square kilometers of open ocean. By June 2nd, debris is spotted from the air: floating seat cushions, cabin panels, personal effects. The ocean has already begun to scatter the aircraft. Over the following days, bodies are recovered from the surface. The official count will eventually reach 50. The main wreckage is not found. The first underwater search focuses on acoustic signals from the flight recorders. For 30 days, ships tow hydrophones across the search zone, listening for the beacon's pings. They hear nothing. When the batteries fall silent, the search is suspended. For almost 2 years, Air France Flight 447 rests undiscovered on the ocean floor, nearly 4,000 meters down, beyond the reach of conventional recovery methods. In 2011, a renewed search begins using deep ocean sonar and autonomous underwater vehicles. On April 3rd, the wreckage field is finally located. The fuselage lies largely intact. The wings are separated. The engines rest nearby. In the weeks that follow, remotely operated vehicles recover the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder. After 23 months underwater, both are readable. For the first time, investigators can hear the cockpit and see, second by second, what the aircraft was doing. Some air disasters are sudden and unmistakable. A flash, a fireball, a clear moment of failure. Air France Flight 447 was not. For hours, it was an ordinary overnight crossing. A modern jet cruising smoothly above the Atlantic. A routine passage through weather pilots had seen before. Then, in less than a minute, automation stepped back. What followed was not chaos, but something quieter and more dangerous: misinterpretation. The aircraft never broke apart in the air. The engines never failed. The flight controls continued to respond. The chain began with something small and familiar: ice crystals obstructing pitot probes, airspeed values that disagreed, protections that stepped aside exactly as designed. From there, the aircraft was flown, steadily, continuously, into a stall that was never recognized. Years later, the recorders revealed a cockpit filled not with panic but with effort, discussion, intent. Pilots trying to understand an aircraft that no longer spoke clearly. The lesson did not end with one crew. After Flight 447, stall warnings were revised. Training was rewritten. High-altitude manual flying returned to simulators. Angle of attack became something pilots were taught to respect, not ignore. Aviation learned, again, that technology does not remove responsibility. It only changes where understanding must live. Today, the Atlantic above the wreckage is empty. Ships pass without knowing what lies beneath. The aircraft is gone. The voices remain in transcripts. The data lives in charts and graphs. Between a normal night over the ocean and a name etched into accident history, there remains a narrow, fragile space. Where systems end, humans decide, and consequences quietly unfold. Between what was and what remains, there lies the liminal.